Some honeyeaters are very good at singing. The best vocalist is the brown honeyeater. But that song just heard is not the brown honeyeater, it is the varied honeyeater. And I believe this is the runner-up in the Honeyeater Songster competition. The varied honeyeater likes coconut trees, and here you can see the bird gleaning from the fronds. Those little black dots are sapsuckers, and the varied honeyeater here finds a mealybug. Usually we regard the honeyeaters as being insectivorous birds, but they also like insects. And in the tropics the insects are abundant. The coconut palm fronds are no exception. The varied honeyeater here was licking those little black spots, the sapsuckers, getting the carbohydrates, and then eating a mealybug. The varied honeyeater is very coastal in its habitat. It is often regarded as being a mangrove-dependent bird, much like its sister, the mangrove honeyeater, a very similar bird, but its habitat is south of the varied honeyeater. I mention this, for the varied honeyeater is far more interested in gleaning off the coconut fronds, and it seems to be specialised in that area. But being a honeyeater will also always take nectar from a blossom. So the habitat of the varied honeyeater is to the north of the mangrove honeyeater, more into the area of the coastal coconut groves. Again here a varied honeyeater gleaning from the coconut palm flower. Another close relative to the varied honeyeater is the singing honeyeater. Whereas the varied honeyeater likes to be near the coconuts on the coast, the singing honeyeater has a much wider habitat from coastal regions extending into the drier inland. So the singing honeyeater, varied honeyeater and mangrove honeyeater together make up the genus Gavicalis. Back to the varied honeyeater, and during these clips you'll hear a lot of the background song of this bird. And the trees that the varied honeyeater is in now are the she oaks. These are the coastal she oaks. And after the coconuts, the she oak trees are the next most common place to find the varied honeyeater. She oak trees are dioecious, in other words there is a male and a female tree. But the interesting things with the she oaks is that they do attract insects. The she oak name comes from the fact that the leaves, or needles, which are really very small branches, drop to the ground, smothering any other vegetation, and the indigenous mothers would often take their children to play in the area underneath the tree, hence the name she oak. And up in this tree you can hear the calls of the varied honeyeaters as they go around gleaning from the different branches. As you've probably noticed, you can hear when one bird is singing that there is another bird also calling or singing at the same time. So they do a lot of duet song. Another typical feature of honeyeaters is they spend a lot of time chasing one another about. They are group birds, usually found in small flocks, and this is the case with the varied honeyeater in this she oak. They do spend time like this bird feeding, but often just chase one another. On this occasion, dancing around in the she oak, there were 12 birds. It was a very loosely knit flock structure, but they are constantly chasing one another. The calls are usually 4-syllable until they just go into a mad chaos of chasing one another, then they become very multi-syllable. The varied honeyeater is isomorphic. We can't really tell the difference between the male and the female. Hear the change in the call as these birds go into a frenzied chase? It just becomes a cacophony of syllables. Let's take a look at a frequency sonogram of the call of the varied honeyeater. It is a 4-syllable call, but repetitive. The 4 syllables of the call will be emphasised with red and white. I don't know if you noticed, but there was also an echo effect after the call. This is the partner's response with the same 4 syllables. Now the typical flight and chase through some of the tropical plants of North Queensland. Here the terminalia, and these plants often have flowers, so they are periodically going through these plants looking for nectar. They will move through the low canopy just as effectively as the top canopy. Here a nest of the varied honeyeater, finely woven spiderweb holding together leaves, grass and small sticks. The bill of the bird can just be seen, and one bird leaves and another arrives. Now, as I've said, usually there's a 4-syllable call, but this bird has just hopped onto a nest. And listen now to the variation in the complexity of the call. Again, you can hear the duet echo type response. This concludes our video on the varied honeyeater, the honeyeater of the Coconut Coast. To watch more videos on Australian birds in the wild, you are more than welcome to subscribe to the Plumes of Oz.